Hello, this is Alex from PHP Academy and welcome to this tutorial on creating a very simple rating system. Now in this video we are going to, or this video series, we're going to look at creating the rating system that I'm about to demonstrate. And essentially this is based on through rating something. I've created this in terms of flexibility so it can be used with articles, blog posts, anything really. The way that I've created this is that it can be adapted and be used, for any purpose, but also multiple purposes. So if you want to use this for 3 different things on a site, then you're able to. Anyway, it's based on 1 to 5 rating. You can see I've listed out some articles here. We'll take a look at the database in just a moment. For example, we've got the first article here with a score of 0.0. I've left this purposely as 0. something, just because you may want to keep this in here for point something ratings. You can transform these ratings into stars, anything like that. There's a variety of ways you can display this. But let's just say I go ahead and rate this 1. We've got 1 rating now, which is of 1. If I was to click 5, you'd expect that to go to 3 because we've done it at first end of the scale and the last or the end of the scale, which has rendered it in the middle. And then we can go ahead and say click on a 2 and a 4. That puts it back into the middle. We can do the same for this as well. We'll give that a rating of 5, give this a rating of 2, then a rating of 4, and then a 3, which renders it the same, and a 2, and that's 2.8. So this is just basically adding up all of the scores that it's been given, and it's dividing it by the number of scores that have been placed, or how many times it's been scored. So it's relatively straightforward mathematics, but we need to go ahead and actually implement this system and link this up somehow to the values in our database table. So let's go ahead and look at our database. You can set your database up or your database table up however you want. It really doesn't matter. In this case, I just have a long line of articles. You'll see here I'm only outputting 5. We're going to be creating the function that outputs the article contents, just so we can sort of tie the rating in with it. But in this case, I'm outputting the first 5. You can see we've got rating total and rating count. Let me just go ahead and refresh this data. Because we've already given a few of these some ratings, we can now see the data within here that reflects it. Now it might look a bit confusing at first, but essentially the rating total is, every time we go ahead and click on, say, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1, or any numbers, it essentially just increments this by what we've added on. So at the moment we've got 12. If I was to go ahead and click on 1, we refresh this, that's gone to 13, and the rating count has increased to 5. And now the reason we do this is because we are essentially just adding up the scores over time, or adding them onto this value, and then we're also adding incrementing 1 here to say how many times this has been voted. And then what we do is we divide these numbers out, and we get the average rating, just like you do when you have a result set, but in this case we're just adding these up easily in this one field. Anyway, if you want to implement this rating system into your website, you're going to need a data set. So before you start the tutorial, go ahead, create a table like this. We will be going through, we won't be going through actually creating the table, but the 2 fields that you will actually need, or will need for this tutorial, are rating total and rating count. ID is irrelevant, although for data you'd usually keep a primary key with an auto increment. This is all this is here. Title doesn't really matter, it's really irrelevant, although make sure that you're comfortable outputting data before you attempt this. So essentially all we've got is a database called website, a table called articles, and then we've got a list of data here. Let's take a look at the structure just in case you need some more information. We've got ID as an integer. Obviously we're also incrementing this, and this is the primary key because it's underlined there. We've got title, which is a varchar of 155, so that's really again irrelevant. We're just outputting something. This can be anything. We've got rating total, which is obviously an int, and a rating count, which is obviously an int. We are using a point here, but obviously the rating total is just always going to be a whole number because we're going to be adding on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have point values here, so this doesn't need to be a float. We've got rating count, which obviously increments by 1 every time a user votes, so that again just needs to be an integer. So whatever data you're outputting, just make sure you've got this rating total and this rating count, these two fields on your table, and you can start storing the ratings here and then display them out to the user along with the rest of your data. So let's go ahead and actually start the tutorial. Just a couple of warnings beforehand. The way I'm doing this isn't ideal in terms of the structure of the code. I'm going to be including things in places that you may not usually include them. That's just because this is a very standalone example. It's not integrated into a larger website. So we're going to have a file where our function is going to be to return our result set. We're going to have a separate file that's going to process our rating. Really, just logically think about where you're putting these things, and I'll try and explain as much as I can along the course of the tutorial anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead, and in the next part we'll look at actually starting to get this out.